Everyone can come on in, please take a seat. We're going to get started in just a moment.
Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to those joining us here, those joining us from home. We are going to begin Hine Matov. It's starting to get dark before Shabbat services, but we are still going to bring some light into the world with our song as we light up this world with welcome, with nachas, with families joining together, coming together for celebration, coming together for learning. Hine Matov.
Speaking of bringing some light to the world, I would like to invite Audrey and Aiden and Ainsley up to light our Shabbat candles for this evening.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Mazel tov. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It is so nice to be here with all of you this evening. It is nice to welcome so many faces into our sanctuary. We good?
Yeah,
We're
I think
good.
so.
Okay, we'll keep going. It's nice to welcome so many faces into our sanctuary, including our Scholar-in-Residence Rabbi Mary Zamore. I'm going to say more about her and welcome her formally this evening, but we are delighted to have her in Omaha with us to sing and pray and learn from her later. And I'm also delighted to begin the celebration of Audrey's bat mitzvah. So welcome to everybody who is celebrating this special simcha with us this evening. And of course, we are all here to begin Shabbat together. So I'd like to invite everyone to take a moment and center. Take a moment to breathe, to be in here in this sanctuary within the walls of this building and not let our minds go to the million other things that we have to do, to the chaos of the week around us, to all of the deadlines that we're working with and the homework assignments and the work things and all of the schmutz of the world. Just let it go. So many things happen in our lives that are the schmutz, the stuff that we can let go of on Shabbat to be present in this moment. So I'm going to invite you to close your eyes, to take a deep breath, and to do your Hazarat HaShavua, your review of the week, to think about where we were at this time last week, and take a moment to review day by day the highlights, the things that you want to bring into this next week intentionally, the joys, and to let go of some of the harder things, to let go of the sadness, to let go of the hardship, and leave that in this week. And then we begin Shabbat, which allows us to shavat vayinafash, to refresh and renew our souls. So take that moment. Take a deep breath. As we begin with Lecha Dodi, as we welcome the Sabbath bride together with song, with spirit, with soul, the things we do best here at Temple Israel. We read together. And so we understand that ordinary people are messengers of the Most High. They go about their tasks in holy anonymity, even unknown to themselves. Yet if they had not been there, if they had not said what they said or did what they did, it would not be the way it is now. We would not be the way we are now. Never forget that you too yourself may be a messenger, perhaps even one whose errand extends over several lifetimes. Continue with our Shabbat angels, our Shabbat messengers with Shalom Aleichem. Please be seated.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Boachem Beshalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baruchuni leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Tzidchem leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Please rise if you're able as we begin the Baruch Hu. I'll let you in on a secret about how one should pray the sunset prayer. It's a juicy bit of praying, like strolling on grass. No one's chasing you. Nobody hurries you. You walk toward your Creator with gifts in pure, empty hands. The words are golden. Their meaning is transparent. It's as though you're saying them for the first time. If you don't catch on that you should feel a little elevated, you're not praying the sunset prayer. The tune is sheer simplicity. You're just lending a helping hand to the sinking day. It's a heavy responsibility. You take a created day and you slip it into the archive of life, where all our lived out days are lying together. The day is departing with a quiet kiss. It lies open at your feet while you stand saying blessings. You can't create anything yourself, but you can lead the day to its end and see clearly the smile of its going down. See how whole it all is, not diminished for a second, how you age with the days that keep dawning, how you bring your lived out day as a gift to eternity. Please be seated.
בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם מאוד על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
We read together responsively. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth.
The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love.
From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way.
Signed by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces.
Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed.
Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea.
All of us most deeply yearn for the blessings of freedom and peace. Each of us seeks the personal liberation of a mind that is not enslaved to conventional wisdom, a heart that is able to love without fear, a spirit that cries yes to the universe. Each of us strives too for the inner peace that comes with finding a harmony between our aspirations and our abilities. This is the Shabbat peace to which we aspire. I invite everyone to please rise if you are able as we begin the Amidah together, and then take some time at the end for silent prayer and meditations of the heart.
Adonai, sifatai tiftach, ufi agiti latelcha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov. Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chastei Avot Ve'imahot, U'Mevei Geula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Moshe U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Bezrat Sarah, atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh hakol atah Rav lehoshia, Mashiv haruach umorid hagashem, Mechakel chaim bechesed, Mechayeh hakol berachamim rabim, Tomech noflim verofech cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayim emunato lishenei afar, Michamocha ba'al gevurot, Umiedom elach, Melech memit umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'emanat halachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yehalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. Oseh shalom v'imrom, Uyaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru Amen.
We take a moment to pray for those who are in need of healing, healing of the mind, healing of the body, healing of the spirit. As a community this evening, we pray for Susan Alexander, Doris and Harry Alloy, Virginia Becker, Tony Baraldi, Jean Braskow, Lisa Brunkhorst, Hildardo Carrera, Sandy Christofferson, Edward Cohn, Kevin Cooper, Judy Cooper, Manuel Delgadillo, Ariana Elnis, Pamela Fox, Rabbi Sim Glazer, Judy Goldstein, Milo Goodman, Robbie Hoskovic, Judy Kyman, Karen Levin, Mike Liddy, Gary Marshall, Dan Mass, Emily McWhirter, Brian Nog, Pedro Comey Olympio, Nadine Ostro, Karen Euler, Wendy Passer, Jamie Poole, Linda and Steve Redler, Emily Sachs, George Sachs, Gregory Sachs, Steve Seglin, Max Shapiro, Linda J. Sherman, Dee Dee Spiegel, Sarah Jane Tietzel, Coralie Thomas, Laura J. West, Barb Wigg, Brent Wine, and Kate Ewell. If there's others that we are praying for this evening, I invite you to share their names either aloud in the community and congregation or online. Thank you, Larry. Thank you. We add to our prayers Mario Mordecai Lopez, Brian Cerberus, Sheldon Babendor, Claire Agar, Lloyd Agar, Ted Agar, and David Irvine, Tina Fassbender, John Hansen and Jane Bashir, Karen Larrick and Rick Waltemath. We pray for a refuah shlema, a complete healing.
Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. Mishaberach Imoitenu, Sarah, Rivka, Leah, Rachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well. Bless us with the power of your healing. Bless us with the power of your home. May our hearts be filled with understanding and strengthened by the power of your love. Bless us with a vision for tomorrow. Help us to reach out to those in pain. May the warmth of friendship ease our sorrow. Give us courage, give us faith, show us the way. Mishaberach Avoteinu, Mishaberach Imoitenu. Hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well.
We take a breath after our prayers, and it is my honor to welcome Rabbi Mary Zamore to our community. For those of you who have had the opportunity to learn with Rabbi Zamore in the last couple of days, you will know how much of a treat we are in for this evening. Rabbi Zamore has taught our teens on Wednesday night. She spoke about fair equity in wages and what it means to have a money ethic. Last night, we gathered at Kitchen Table downtown and had a really amazingly delicious meal and had a really beautiful conversation about the ethics of eating. And I am really delighted to welcome Rabbi Zamore because she is the executive director of the Women's Rabbinic Network, a partner organization of the Reform Movement for the last 40 years. And this organization, not as many people I think maybe know about it as the CCAR or the URJ, but for rabbis like me and Rabbi Appel, it is really the organization that helps support and has supported and uplifted and brought together female, women, identifying non-binary, gender fluid rabbis, and has really given us support and community and resources to do the work we do in our community. And Rabbi Zamore has been a tremendous powerhouse advocate for all of those things. So I want to share a little bit about her with all of you. Aside from all of those are personal asides, and then invite Rabbi Zamore to share some words of wisdom and Torah with our community. So Rabbi Mary Zamore is the executive director of the Women's Rabbinic Network. For 40 years, the WRN has worked to narrow the wage gap, create safer, respectful Jewish communities, and promote equity, while also supporting and advocating for reform women and non-binary gender fluid rabbis. At WRN, Rabbi Zamore co-leads the Reform Pay Equity Initiative and founded WRN's Clergy Safe Employees and Employers program, seeding respectful and harassment-free Jewish communities for all. Rabbi Zamore has been named a Truah, Rabbinic Call for Human Rights, Rabbinic Rights Hero in 2022. She is the 2022 cohort of JWI's Jewish Communal Women Leadership Project, as well as a fellow with the Association for Public Religion and Intellectual Life at Auburn Seminary in New York City, studying in the Oppressions and Repair Colloquium. She is the editor of the Sacred Exchange, Creating a Jewish Money Ethic, and the Sacred Table, Creating a Jewish Food Ethic, designated a finalist by the National Jewish Book Awards. Rabbi Zamore was ordained by Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion in New York in 1997 and graduated from Columbia College. She proudly served congregations in central New Jersey for 18 years before joining the WRN. So let's give a warm Temple Israel welcome to Rabbi Zamore.
Well, thank you to your rabbis and for that warm welcome, your cantor, who I know for a very long time as well, and the entire Temple Israel community for just your amazing hospitality. And mazel tov to you, Audrey, and your family. I want to look back to my own home for a moment. Among our favorite foods in the kitchen, my husband and I keep a local hot sauce, water table crackers, and good quality, fully caffeinated coffee. Not surprising, things that maybe some of you have in your kitchen, in fact. Except my husband and I don't actually ingest any of those things. Hot sauce, never. The other two, well, maybe once or twice a year. So why are they always in our pantry? Just in case. Just in case there are guests. And I bet you do the same, right? You keep food at home just for guests, maybe for a certain friend or family member who visits on a rare occasion, or perhaps even for that unknown future guest who you just don't know who that's going to be, who may appear one day. In Hebrew, we call this value hachnasat orchim, welcoming guests. And this week's Torah portion by Era starts with this value. And of course, it is shared by many religious cultures, but it's also foundational to Judaism. So let's take a quick peek at this week's Torah portion, the opening verses. I know, Audrey, tomorrow you're going to be focusing on a different section. So here we are. Adonai appears to Abraham by the Tabernas of Mamre, and he's sitting there in the entrance of his tent, and it's hot. And suddenly he sees three figures standing near him. Now, tomorrow, if you come to Torah study, we're going to go into depth into these verses. But what does Abraham do immediately? He jumps up, he offers them a morsel to eat, some bread. He rushes to get Sarah, gives more instructions about what to feed them. Maybe you've been there as well. And finally, he brings forth cakes and basically like a cheese-like product that's from the curds of milk, and then calf, some sort of meat dish. And he waits on them and serves them under the tree. Good hospitality. In these 8 verses, we see the representation of 2 very wide spectrum of food values, but 2 come in these 8 verses. The first we said was Haknasat Orhim, welcoming others, especially with food. And the other is the foundation of the Jewish ritual commandments, kashrut, to separate milk and meat. We're not going to go into that one in depth, but just know it's there as well. Okay, now we're going to take a giant leap forward to the book of Deuteronomy. This is one of my favorite texts, although I promise any day of the week, if you ask me about my favorite text, it may shift a little. There are a lot of good ones. So in Deuteronomy 13, Moses teaches in this case, surely this commandment which I enjoin you this day is not too difficult for you, nor is it beyond reach. It is not in the heavens, nor is it beyond the sea. No, it is very close to you in your mouth and in your heart. These words teach that Judaism is not bound to one person or place. Moses, in fact, reassures us that Torah abides wherever we go. Judaism sees our religious practice as tied to the synagogue for sure, but also our home and to each one of us as individuals all the time. It's not just for Fridays, it's not just for Saturdays, it is all the time. Of course, the Judaism that thrives in this synagogue, and specifically in the sanctuary, is only as strong as the Judaism which each of us carries with us the minute we walk out those doors and go to that parking lot and leave this beautiful tri-faith center. Judaism is centered here, but as our text teaches, with a little reverberation, it is very close to you in your mouth and in your heart. Traditionally, the concept of Torah being in our mouths has been interpreted as the process of teaching Torah. However, I'd like to offer that rather seeing Torah as a process connected to speech, we can also see it in a different way, one that will strengthen our connection to Judaism throughout our waking hours, whether we be in the temple or at home or anywhere else, through our mouths, through our stomachs, on our plates, and in our kitchens. What if Torah and Judaism were so close to you and to any of us that it was present every single time we eat? After all, Judaism is a holistic religion, one which addresses every bit of our lives. Why not our food? We certainly interact with food a lot in our lives, right? So before I continue, we're going to do a little experiment. I'm going to ask you some questions. Nobody has to raise a hand, so I promise it's just between you and yourself. You're just going to think through the answers for yourself. Here are the questions. Do you eat challah on Shabbat or on holidays? Do you say motzi, the blessing for bread, before you eat that challah? Are you concerned about the impact of that food production has on the environment? Do you refrain from eating pork, either in your home or out of your home? Are you vegetarian? Are you vegan? Do you enjoy creating holiday meals using family recipes? Do you fast on Yom Kippur? Are you concerned about the rights of workers who produce our food? Do you eat matzah on Passover? Do you refrain from eating bread on Passover? Do you emphasize healthy food in your diet? Do you eat local food, organic food? Do you shop at a farm or a farmer's market? Are you trying to reduce your meat consumption? Maybe you're trying to raise your meat consumption and have more protein in your diet. Do you contribute money or food to help feed the hungry? Do you work in Temple Israel's garden, contributing over, I've been told, 2,000 work hours and 5,200 pounds of food to local feeding programs? So really, by the way, that's a great question, and that's a really good brag-worthy statistic. All of these questions represent different facets of what is potentially a Jewish approach to food. As you heard, the questions reflect traditional, ritual, and spirituality, just as our weekly Torah portion does. But these questions also reflect the multifaceted relationship with food and its production, integrating values such as ethics, community, and charity into our dietary practice. And frankly, you don't have to go too far in the Torah and in our other sacred texts to find those values. They've been with us for a very long time. But back to those questions. Surely each one of us was able to answer positively to at least one or more of those questions. But on the other hand, surely none of us were able to say yes or no to all of them. We are a diverse community. Therefore, the values we bring to our plates are rich and varied too. But what if all the values represented by these questions collectively represent a liberal reform dietary practice? As modern liberal Jews, our plates are filled with a broad spectrum of values and identities. However, our dietary choices should not be divorced from our Judaism. Bagels and kugel should not be our only connection to Judaism when we eat. And Michael Pollan books should not be the only texts which guide our eating. The food values to which we aspire should not be separate from our Jewish identities. Therefore, I'd like to suggest something that's perhaps unexpected, that we Reform Jews talk about the food we eat and serve and how it is produced in terms of that word kosher, kashrut, Jewish dietary law. It's a little crazy. Kosher seems like it belongs to a different wing of Judaism. But for too long, we Reform Jews have felt totally alienated from the laws of kashrut. The assumption is that Reform Jews do not keep kosher. And in some ways, the colloquial definition of being a Reform Jew seems to be one who happily does not keep kosher. That all those forbidden foods, according to the strictest halachic reading of Jewish law, like pork, shellfish, meat and milk mixed together. But what if Reform Jews could embrace the concept of kashrut and say that kosher is actually part of our vocabulary too? Now, I know that kosher evokes some very strong reactions and images. For some of us, we fondly remember a delicious family feast at a grandparent's house that was kosher. For others, we think of inedible prepackaged airline meals. Or we recall ugly headlines announcing embarrassing abuses in the kosher food production industry. But for others, we hear the clarion call for higher standards for ethical treatment of workers and animals. We recognize the prophet's teachings to feed all who are hungry. We wonder if keeping the laws of kashrut could draw us nearer to God, our Judaism, and each other. The word kashrut is filled with contradictions and challenges. Each one of us brings this discussion with all of its complexities, including our relationships with food, each other, and Judaism. After all, food defines our first relationship with our caregivers when we were children. Food defines our view of culture and civilization. Throw in our religion and we together have quite a conversation. And yet the reality is that despite, or maybe even compelled by all this complexity and nuance, many liberal Jews are talking and thinking about food through a Jewish lens. In the past, kashrut, with its all or nothing ritual approach, either you were or you weren't, did not fit with Reform Judaism's ideology and worldview. After all, we are the branch of Judaism that treasures educated individual choice, modern education and science, social integration with our neighbors, as exemplified by your community, and we emphasize ethics, social action, and social justice. And I personally never want us to sacrifice any of those. Those are core values to me as a rabbi and a Jew. So what I propose is not to conflict with any of them. So why talk about what to eat and what not to eat? And why open that can of worms? Well, for one, within the liberal Jewish world, there's a growing interest in revisiting traditional rituals, including a strong curiosity about food values and especially ritual practices. There's also the recognition that over the rich history of 200 years of Reform Judaism, there have always been Reform Jews who've kept some level of kashrut, who've struggled with these core questions. When you look carefully at the Reform Jewish relationship with food, you will see that we've always expressed our religion to the plate, whether we're eating things that are traditionally defined as kosher or things that are traditionally defined as treif. Some of you will remember the grape and lettuce boycotts of the 1970s, the 1980s. I certainly do remember being a very small child and not being allowed to have grapes or lettuce in our home. Reform Jews treasure pluralism. What I choose to eat does not have to be identical to what you choose to eat. One of us may emphasize ritual laws, while another may emphasize ethical or spiritual practices. But you know what? Most of us eat probably 3 times a day. So why not infuse this basic part of our lives with Jewish thought and values? After all, as you know, our secular culture is gripped by a growing passion by the numerous issues surrounding our relationship to food and its production. So all of these trends and thoughts and trends can come together in a vibrant way. Reform Jews can discuss kashrut with the best of what's in the secular world and the best of what's in Jewish thinking. So if you haven't caught on by now, when I say kosher, when I say kashrut, I don't mean an orthodox definition of this term. There's a place in our greater community for that. But liberal Jews, we approach Judaism through a different lens, and so too with food. My teacher, Zichrono Livracha, may his memory be for a blessing, Rabbi Richard Levy, pointed out very wisely, just as we have set forth models of Shabbat observance for our people, so we can create models of dietary practice And just as they are free to follow our Shabbat examples, reject them, or find models of their own, so of course they are free to do the same with kashrut. Nobody would claim what we're doing here tonight is not Shabbat, I'd hope. No one in this room, I mean. So too with food. We Reform Jews do not shy away from using the term Shabbat, even though our ritual practices differ greatly from those of traditional Judaism. Therefore, we can embrace the term kashrut as we navigate through our choices and use that authentically Reform approach. As we reappropriate the word kashrut, we will broaden its definition for sure. To hear the overarching question, it is, what is your Jewish relationship with food, its production, and its distribution? Reform kashrut, as we have with so many other aspects of Judaism, we will bring our respect for autonomy and religious pluralism. We'll integrate values such as ethics, community, spirituality into our practices. We will try out, we will consider, we will reject, and we will adapt. From a Reform point of view, ritual can never be orphaned from ethics. There's so much to this discussion. When we examine the questions I asked you earlier, we discovered that many of us are already striving to infuse our food with meaning and value. And some are approaching that plate through very natively Jewish approaches, thinking about ritual and blessings. Others among us have never considered that food values like vegetarianism or support for local food can be supported by Jewish values. Judaism has much to teach concerning all of this. I cannot emphasize enough how much any Reform dietary practice must celebrate the individual and the educated choice. And the conversation should create a beautiful buffet of values from which to choose and to think about. In the meantime, I invite you and your partners, your families, those you live with, and those you're in conversation and community with. I invite you to step up to the buffet. Build on those practices which you already follow, and most of all, eat well, so that the Torah is in our hearts and our mouths. Shabbat Shalom.
Thanks, Nate. Okay. Yasher Koach, Rabbi Zamore, thank you for a beautiful teaching. Thank you for inviting us to reclaim the term kashrut. Like so many things in Reform Judaism, food is another area where we have some this discomfort and this tension, and we need to be able to reclaim that sacred space. And having you push us, invite us, challenge us to grapple with those questions in our mind is really food for the soul for us. So thank you so much for a beautiful teaching this Shabbat. So I'd like to invite everyone as we begin our conclusion of our service to please rise if you are able as we say the Aleinu together.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon ha'kol, l'adin g'dola li'aseh b'reishit, shelo asanu k'goyei ha'aratzot, ve'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu b'hem, ve'gor aleinu k'chol ha'olam, ve'anachnu kureim u'mishtachavim לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל
seated. I'd like to invite, if there are any veterans in our midst, in our community, to join me up here as we say a blessing for those who have served our country, for the country of Israel or another armed forces. If anybody is able to join me, please do so. As we know, today is Veterans Day, and it is important to recognize people who have served our people who have given of themselves for our protection, our safety, to defend the way of life and the values that we hold dear. So please join us as we give you a blessing. I invite everyone to please join me in this prayer. Compassionate God, source of mercy, we pay tribute to those who have served our country and express our gratitude for their courage and selflessness, both those among us today and those of generations past. This nation, built by those born of this soil and those who have come here from all the corners of the earth, is on a continual journey toward its destiny. May we never let down those who have served in defense of this country. May we uphold the values of freedom, of the inherent dignity of every human being, by our own conduct, by the kindness and tolerance we show to one another. May we lead the world by example and become, in the words of Isaiah, a light to the nations. Then will the labors and sacrifices of these veterans be honored, not in words alone, but in our deeds. So on behalf of our community, we would like to thank you for your service. Thank you for all that you have done for our people, for our community, for our way of life. We say together, Amen.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Erin. We turn our thoughts to those who are no longer with us, who have died in this season or in seasons past. As I say the name of someone that you are remembering tonight, I invite you to stand if you are able, and in a moment, I will invite you to add names to this list. As a community, we are in Shloshim, the first 30 days of mourning for Natalie EY, Ralph Jerome Post, Arlene Fredericks, and Elubav Blaker. We are observing the yard sites of Grace Bernstein, Martha Cohen Chernus, Jeanette R. Cohen, David L. Fredericks, Goldie Kahn Friedman, Beverly Galinsky, Minnie Zamuri Galinsky, Frank Joseph Gilk, Abe Goldstein, Malvina N. Greenspan, Lynn Williams Gross, Gordon L. Gross, Sheldon Shelley Harris, Charles Edwin Katz, Morris Edward Kirschenbaum, Irving L. Klein, Nettie R. Klein, Teresa R. Copald, Albert J. Krasny, Gilbert C. Larson, Frederick Leopold, Nell Marie Moritz, Joseph Needleman, Edith Passer, Saul Rosinski, Fanny Stock Rothkopf, Phyllis Sherman, Minnie G. Sherman, Benjamin A. Simon, Esther Elaine Syrif, Harry Syrif, Lawrence Solomon, Isidore Summer, Hyman Serene, Martin L. Sugarman, F.H. Bud Turkle, Benjamin Warren, and Ben Wintraub. If there's a name that you are remembering tonight, whose name I have not mentioned, I invite everyone to please share that name with our community, either aloud or online, so that we can remember with you. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. Thank you. We also remember Rita Arnold. We join together as we remember as one community, and I invite you to rise if you are comfortable doing so. Yikadal v'yikadash Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divrach hirute v'yamlich malchute. B'chayehon u'v'yomechon u'v'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala u'v'zman karim v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mivorach le'olam ulamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei dekudashan b'richu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechamata. Da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memories always be for a blessing. We say together, amen. Please be seated. So I have a few announcements before we conclude. So first, I want to say thank you to Julie for beautiful music this evening, to our back of the house, Scott, our tech, Nate and Eli for holding it down back there, our hospitality team who put together our own egg for tonight, which is sponsored by the, I'm getting to that in a minute, but apparently it's below, hold on. The Meyersons, thank you. The Oneg is sponsored by Lance and Sherry Meyerson, Heidi and Scott Schneiderman, Jenny and Scott Meyerson, and Tony Endelman in honor of Audrey and her bat mitzvah this weekend. I'd also like to thank our security guard, Fred, our Oneg volunteers, Gail Knapp, who made a beautiful apple pie, and our Zoom maven, Karen Euler. We'd like to thank the community, all of you for being here. Like to thank our support of our members, patrons, and sponsors, and this month's coffee bar sponsor, Mibsy Brooks. I'd also like to take a moment and thank Cantor for a beautiful service this evening, and Rabbi Appel, who is ill and unable to be here, but really spearheaded the effort to bring Rabbi Zamore here. And it's just been a really amazing experience. So thank you to Rabbi Appel, and of course, thank you to Rabbi Zamore for a really beautiful teaching this Shabbat. So a few announcements. We'd like to invite all of our board members to please stand so that people in the community can know who you are. You all are maybe wearing name tags. Potentially you're wearing name tags. Some of you are wearing name tags. But please feel free if you have any thoughts, questions, anything you want to ask to see any of these board members. They're always happy to talk temple with anybody who'd like to. Please join us tomorrow for Audrey's bat mitzvah and our Shabbat service. We are delighted to be able to celebrate with the Meyerson family. And also Rabbi Zamore has graciously agreed to lead Torah study for us, something that she is doing just because she is a kind and wonderful and thoughtful rabbi. Rabbi Appel was going to lead Torah study, but is ill. So Rabbi Zamore graciously offered, and as we saw tonight, is going to share some really wonderful wisdom with all of us. So 9:15 with Rabbi Zamore. If you enjoyed tonight's sermon from Rabbi Zamore, we are able to offer a special promo code for 20% off of her two books, The Sacred Exchange and The Sacred Table. You can find more information on the flyers that we have on the table, and they'll be out there. They're available. There's also right there on the slide.
You can even use the QR code.
You can even use the QR code in that Zamore 20 code on the CCR Press website. It will be good until the 17th. And I have both of those books, by the way. They're amazing, and they feature so many perspectives and amazing opportunities to learn more from so many different really great teachers. We are excited to announce that we are having an artist in residence during the first weekend of December. Yahala Lachnish, okay, is an Israeli cantor of Middle Eastern descent and a modern Petan, or a poetess. On December 4th, she'll be offering an educational opportunity about Piyutim, which means liturgical poetry from around the world. It's an event in collaboration with Bethel. Yahala Lachnish will lead worship at Bethel on Shabbat, and there will be a concert on Saturday evening. I can read, don't worry. Save the date, Hanukkah is around the corner. We're going to be having a first night, first light celebration on Sunday, December 18th. We hope that you will join us. We'll be releasing more details soon, but put the date on your calendar. We're going to light the first of the lights together and bring in the light of Hanukkah into the darkness that surrounds the earth at that time, but knowing that we are together in community. So please join us for all of these things and more. And we will conclude this evening with Kiddush and Motzi. So we'd like to invite Audrey and her family up to join us on the bima.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'rata avanu. B'Shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon yinhilanu. Zikaro l'maaseh v'reishi, ki hu yom tehila l'mikayeh v'kodesh. Zeher l'tziyai Mitzrayim, kivanu v'harta ve'otanu kidashta mikol hamim. B'Shabbat kodsheha be'ahava uvratzon hinhaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat.
Amen. L'chaim. For those who eat. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'te'avon. Shabbat Shalom. We are going to conclude with Olam Chesed Yibaneh. Together, whatever choices we are making, if we use our brains to make them wisely, if we use our hearts to make them with love, we will build this world from love. Olam Chesed Yibaneh.
Shabbat Shalom. Please join us outside for an oneg.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
Hi. Shabbat Shalom.